Hello, it's Diane Bernholz with more on the Etan Patz case. So, the Etan Patz murder case went to trial in 2015. The jury deliberated the prosecution's case against Pedro Hernandez for 18 days and it couldn't reach a verdict. The case was then tried again in 2016. The tapes of Pedro Hernandez's confessions were played by the prosecution multiple times at trial. And the reason the prosecution relied so heavily on Hernandez's confessions was because there was no physical evidence tying Hernandez to Patz's murder, and there were no eyewitnesses as to the actual crime. During jury deliberations for the second trial, the jury sent 3 notes to the judge asking about Hernandez's confessions. In one note, the jury asked the judge if they find that Hernandez's first confession was not voluntary, the unmirandized one, whether they should disregard the subsequent videotaped confessions. The trial court simply answered no. The jury struggled and deliberated for another 7 days and eventually convicted Hernandez of felony murder and kidnapping, but they acquitted him of intentional murder. Hernandez is in state prison serving a sentence of 25 years to life. He appealed his conviction and he lost. He then brought a federal habeas petition. These habeas petitions, they are long shots. They're kind of like a last gasp when all of the defendant's appeals have been exhausted. And the gist of a habeas petition is someone is claiming that they're being held unlawfully as a result of a constitutional error that occurred during the trial process, which affected the outcome of the case. And these are rarely granted. Here, the Second Circuit ruled that the trial court's answer to the jury was clearly an error, and furthermore, that the error was manifestly prejudicial, ruling that it was error for the trial court not to give the jury any instructions as to how it should treat subsequent confessions if it found that Hernandez's first confession, before he received those Miranda warnings, to be involuntary. So there's a Supreme Court opinion right on point, which holds that it's unconstitutional for police to intentionally obtain an inadmissible non-Mirandized confession and then immediately give the Miranda warnings and ask the suspect to repeat the confession they just gave without any curative measures, such as a substantial amount of time passing between the two confessions. And the whole point of Miranda is to require law enforcement to inform a defendant of his constitutional rights when he's subject to a custodial interrogation, which was the situation here. Hernandez was clearly in custody and he was clearly being interrogated. The police are not to bypass that by getting a confession after hours of interrogation without Miranda and then providing the warnings after. The Second Circuit found that Hernandez's confessions were central to the prosecution's case and that the voluntariness of the confessions was clearly on the jury's mind, given their notes. So the subsequent confessions to the DA's office were not as clear-cut to the Second Circuit since more time had passed, but the court noted that there was not a substantial break in time or a meaningful change in circumstances before that confession. So therefore, based on all these facts and the law and the Constitution, the appellate court reversed the conviction and remanded the case, which means sending it back down to the lower court, and ordered that Hernandez be released unless the state of New York affords him a new trial within a reasonable period of time. The Manhattan DA's office says is reviewing that decision. And Cyrus R. Vance Jr., who oversaw the 2 trials for the prosecution, said, "I still believe the decision to bring the case was absolutely the right decision. As the DA, I was certainly convinced myself that Pedro Hernandez killed Etan Patz, and I think that today." I'll keep you posted on what happens next. Please leave any comments or questions that you may have. And thank you. I'll be back.